Hello there, everybody. Welcome back to the LJL officially unofficials coverage of the LJL Academy. I am Middlecott, joined by Molding Izzle, who is going to have the pleasure of watching Sengoku versus Axiz with me, Melvin Izzle. The main Sengoku team, they've not been kind to you in terms of results, but hopefully they can get something a little better going on here.
Well, fortunately, it's not like Axiz have any kind of track record for putting together good rookie teams or anything like that.
No.
Thank God it's not like they're contesting against DFM for a world spot next week or something ridiculous like that with mostly rookie players. That would be stupid,
that would be ridiculous. Yeah, no way. But we do have the rosters available to us now. As we can see on Axiz, a couple names that we may recognize. Dicey has played a game on the LJL main stage. Didn't look amazing, but there we are. And then Mutton is a player that a few people have been talking about as a potential LJL ready talent.
Have got a good amount of champion diversity, which is really the name of the game in the jungle. You don't need to be the best player at any individual champion, as long as you can flex around. So many different styles, so many different champions are viable right now. We've seen Jarvans, we've seen Echoes, we've seen Kanes today. Yeah. And being able to pull out a good counter pick, something that works with your comp, I would say is the most important part about being a jungler in this current meta game.
Yeah. But also securing yourself a good matchup in your solo lanes is quite important. And we do have a little bit of a Katarina OTP on the Axiz side. Nalicio, as I'm going to be saying it, loves playing that champion. We've been burnt by Katarina OTPs in the LJL before, but hopefully they are able to step up to the plate and show us something a little bit different.
I mean, looking across the other side over at Sengoku's mid lane, they do have, I'm going to say, Ekanu? Something like that? You got a better pronunciation for me, Middlecott? Because I'm saying that looking at that one, no, okay, cool. Going off champion names when we're in game, but the point being, the champions they have are things like the Yone, like the Akali, like the Lucian that want to contest lane to fight. So these are kind of matchups where you can see a Katarina come out and it gets very bloody very, very quickly.
Yeah, then in the top lane, you've got a few of these LJL staple champions in their pool. The Camille, the Set, the Renekton. So hopefully we can see those get pulled out. I know we've had a lot of Camille players today that haven't played any Camille. As strong as the opinions I have about that champion are, it's always nice to see a competent player play it to a very high level because she can just take over games with ease.
Very unfun to play against, very satisfying to watch because something about just getting the heel toe second true damage kick and watching it Cho'Gath ult somebody is always just like, ooh, I could feel that in the soul. But looking at people who are going to be facing down that, we do have Toltu in the top lane for Axiz Academy, and they have got quite the niche champion pool. They have got the counter pick champion pool, I'm going to call it, of Jax, Fiora, Tryndamere, and Kennen as the champions we've got written down. Tryndamere being one that was notorious actually for popping up when Gwen was in her prime because it was a champion who could actually fight her.
And I'll tell you what, a lot of the times casters from the LJLOU like to go on UK events and go, oh, I remember seeing this in the LJL, making references, just plugging the broadcast.
I know where you're going with this.
It's a great thing to do. There was a player in the UKL in the summer split called Raider. Very, very good top laner, possibly the highest elo player in that tournament. But it was on a few champions that weren't these meta-defining blind pickable picks, stuff like the Jax, stuff like the Fiora, and they got focused out heavily in ban phases and sort of weren't able to perform to the same level. So I'm apprehensive as to whether it's going to be the same sort of thing happening this time around, where once you take away a couple of this player's key champions, they're not able to have the same impact as they would otherwise.
I agree with you in that aspect, as it is a route to take, but the thing is, when you're in this kind of raw academy state, you need to be able to punish the player for doing that, because you could just shut them on Ornn duty at the end of the day. If they're willing to do it, something like that, it doesn't have to be Ornn, but a champion that can survive on its own, even Renekton, that gives you at least some skirmish potential, then at the end of the day, they're always going to offer that baseline utility to the team. And it means things like this Katarina might end up getting through, which, when you look at the balance of scales, it's like, okay, which are you more scared of, Tryndamere or Katarina in the pro hands? I'm probably leaning towards getting rid of the Katarina, personally. Yeah, Tryndamere is a nuisance, but a nuisance only.
Yeah, but we did see in our previous game another one of these picks that we don't really see in professional play come out in the Alawi, and whilst it did fine in the lane, was able to generate a little bit of an advantage, did get locked down a lot in the team fights and wasn't able to be effective. And whilst Katarina has a hell of a lot more mobility than something like the Alawi, if she gets CC, she becomes pretty darn useless. So you're going to pull that out. You need to be doing it in a coordinated environment, both from your own side, so that you can play around the champion effectively. But we will be finding out fairly soon, as we are hopping into picks and bans. Thresh is removed, taken off the table. This is a champion that I know you're a big fan of, Melvin Izzle. Unfortunately, we won't be seeing it this time around.
It is possibly the most essential blue side ban you can throw down, because if you end up first picking it, there's a lot of good counter picks available. They can take away the Aphelios, lock in things like the Brom, and suddenly you're in a dire spot. However, if you give it over to red side, they can immediately pick up champions that counter it and maybe pick up that Aphelios Thresh pairing themselves. They're having a little bit of issues of champ select, but that's fine. Last game of the day, so we've had a pretty smooth day so far, with the exception of one pause.
There was one pause. We haven't had any really massive delays. Good job. Good job, LJL. Yeah. You're doing a great job, and that makes our job a hell of a lot easier as well. But it does mean we have a little bit more time to talk about what we would expect. So the Thresh coming out as the immediate ban. Obviously, Dicey is a player that has played on the LJL stage, and whilst it didn't look great, possibly one of the higher level supports coming into this tournament. So you reckon that focusing them could be a potential angle? Is support really a role that you can do that to?
I don't think it is in the current meta game, just because there's so many champions that offer the same purpose. If you want an engager, you can go Rel, you could go Leona, you could go Alistair. You're 3 champions in, and there's already more still on the table, because then you have to think, all right, we got rid of those, great. Brom and Thresh are still on the table. Yeah. These enchanters, we haven't even talked about them. I know Lulu had a nerf. I believe it was on this patch, actually. But it doesn't mean that they're still a bad champ. If you lock that in with a Cogmore, it can still do absolute work in the bottom lane. I would say for this game, this is probably the most raw players we have. And when I say that, I mean they have got very solo queue champion pools for a lot of them, which I really hope we get to see, because if you play that in competitive environments, it's always satisfying to watch.
Yeah, if they pop off, I think seeing a Zed or a Jax or a Tryndamere going down 40 CS and not really having impact. I suppose if you hate the champion, can be quite satisfying, but it's definitely not the sort of thing that your coach is happy with. Like, you're going on the stage, I could definitely pick Riven here or whatever, and then you go 0-3 at 10 minutes, and they're like, well, you're not allowed to do that next game. You're playing Malphite.
But the thing is, you can actually flex that knowledge in these games. We saw it over in LEC. Adam taking down G2 with their Darius last pick, as we are back into pick and ban now. Let's see if any of those one-trick kind of champions get acknowledged. Currently, no Katarina ban. The LeBlanc is taken off the table. We do have the Rise banned away from Axiz. Again, these are just very strong meta staples right now. Very respectful pick and ban from both teams. And once the OPs are gone, that's when one-tricks can start to show their faces.
And we're getting taken off the table. Another one of these meta champions that you don't really see banned too much unless we're a couple games deep into a series, when teams have actually realised he can be a massive problem. Does very well into a lot of the current jungle pool, but can also be flexed down into the support role if you're so inclined.
Let's take a look and see how they can finish off this ban phase. Will the Katarina get taken away? No. Okay, if I was Axiz, I wouldn't pick it first regardless. There's no point in doing that. You're just throwing them to the wolves in that case. At least leave it for second rotation and make Sengoku invest a little bit. Leona, very good champion to take, as is General. I wouldn't say it's the best blind pick that's currently open, but it is a very good answer into Katarina that's been taken away.
Yeah, important to note that it is Axiz on the blue side, Sengoku on the red. So Nalicio will have a mid lane at counter pick, could potentially pick up the Katarina for themselves here if this is the Syndra, but I feel like this is a matchup which is pretty dominant in the lane, and obviously with that scatter to the weak can interrupt the Death Lotus, which makes it a lot harder for the Katarina to pop off.
We are just assuming they're going to play it at this point. They still have other answers available. Yeah. The Sylas and Akalia both still open. These are champions that we know they also like to play. I would say, as is the current moment, Katarina seems pretty rough when you're against that kind of mid-jungle. I doubt that that's a Syndra bot lane, but when you have this power that is offered by the point-and-click knock-up into actual follow-up stun and burst, they have already drafted to say don't play Katarina without saying ban Katarina.
Yeah, as it will be the Volibear locked in for Mutton here. So a champion that we're not really seeing too much of, has been going down in priority for a little while since the start of the season when they were absolutely OP, but can match the Xin Zhao in the early game. And with the Ezreal locked in as well, going towards Deanty, however you're going to say it, offers them a bit more of a weak side champion, so that Dicey can roam around and get stuff done on the Leona.
Which I think is the right way to kind of play when you have on the opposing team things like the Syndra and like the Xin Zhao. If you can invade onto them aggressively with this Volibear, you can actually kill them, especially pre-6. The Xin Zhao is not the strongest champion in the game if they are aggressed on. I think it's the same story for both of these junglers pre-6, where if you jump on them, it is not remotely as threatening as if they are getting on top of you. Same thing with Syndra. If they do not end up taking a respect cleanse, then every time Dicey walks mid, there is the potential to trade flashes, especially after 6, after a point. It becomes nearly unplayable for Syndra if they do not have any obligation to stay bot.
Okay, so now we're starting to see these one tricks potentially being banned away. Axiz have yet to pick a solo laner, and the Fiorat has been removed. So a lot of respect being shown towards Toltu. We know that he's very good on that champion, and Fury is one of these side lane carries that is a bit more viable in competitive play, purely because she can scale up so well. On the other side, though, removing a Camille, a champion that does very similar things once you get to the late game.
Fiora being one of the best counters to Camille historically is a skill matchup, but it's definitely a Fiora favored one. Makes sense that as soon as you see that ban, you go, alright, they're just trying to take the Camille, we can't let them get away with this. Jace, one a bit more respectful, I would say. It's leading me to think they might be blind picking a Gnar or something here now that Camille is off the table. You have a lot more champion versatility up here for you as opposed to their counterpart. May not actually pick anything here. Makes sense why you would just lock in the bot lane, considering it's already heads up on Axis' side. Kalista does do fine into the enemy team. It's just the fact that the Leona can be a nuisance for them later, considering their disengage is not too great.
But the thing is, with this Kalista Rel combo, it gives you enough engage that unless the Ezreal is burning summoner spells, at the very least, they are not getting away. You've got so many chances to go in, land knockups, land stuns as well. It becomes really difficult to actually weak side that champion if you are not playing it respectfully. Does leave counterpick available for you in the top lane, as it is going to be Kennen locked in for Toltu.
I'm starting to think that you could actually opt for just taking the Sylas in the top lane if they wanted to. If they're confident in that matchup, it's a champion they play. We'll have to see, as Axiz actually might be one step ahead of me, saying, I like the sound of that. Sylas is a very strong champion still.
Yeah, and obviously with the Kalista on the other side, you do get access to that Fate's Call. So throwing someone like Kennen or Volibear into the middle of the fight, that looks pretty good for you and gives you a lot more engage options than you necessarily had otherwise. Obviously, the Crescent Guard as well is huge. The Magnet Storm, the Unleashed Power is good as well. And it's the set locked in. A very strong champion, but I feel like it's not quite the power pick, the curveball that Sengoku needed.
It does offer the disengage potential to keep Sylas, the Volibear, and Leona away from this backline, but as far as it goes in the team fights, I'm just looking through, and the Ezreal can put in absolute work this game. If Dent is allowed to get ahead, then they're going to be effectively unstoppable to Sengoku, because while you do have a lot of engage, I don't think you really get to access them with the fact that you have to run through a Kennen, through a Sylas who could just steal the Xin Zhao ultimate and just knock you back after. So I think Axiz are coming out favorable here, but Sengoku have way more proactive playmaking potential. If it gets to the late game 3 items kind of territory, I could see Axiz run away with it, but Sengoku have all the tools they need to disappoint me once again.
Oh, Melvin Issel. You sound like a lover scorned. Hopefully you won't be, and that Sengoku will be able to show up in this game. Like you mentioned, they do have a lot of tools, but as we've seen already today, it's not necessarily about the tools you have, it's about how you're able to execute on them.
They have got plenty of engage and the ability to play back as well. The one thing that I think has to be mentioned with the Kalista for both teams now that the Silas is locked in is that it means that we can see this support on the rail. We can see, I'm going to say Chilio because it reads kind of like that. Can jump in on the rail and be pulled out to safety after, which is something that is not insignificant because it means if you ever do get collapsed on by a counter gank, something like Mutton coming out of a bush, etc., then you can just disengage on your own, and that is something that needs to be acknowledged because it offers so much, especially for Rel, who their biggest weakness is once they engage, they don't get to walk away. With Kalista, they do.
Yeah, but there's a little bit of me which is scared that if you're pulling Chilio back out of the fight and you're not recommitting onto these champions like the Silas and like the Volibear that do so well when they go through multiple spell rotations, I think that Leona is a champion you can also put into that category. If you don't completely hard commit onto these characters, then you can sort of start to get run down in the extended team fight.
When it comes to extended team fights, Kalista and Ezreal are going to be massive. The possibility for Giant Wrens. Taking a look through the rest of them, everybody else is kind of a one-hit wonder. The Syndra can do decent DPS, but it's nowhere close to anything like the Silas. But even he starts off very aggressive initially and then has to wait for that Kingslayer to keep coming back up, cycling that cooldown. Same thing for junglers. They do a lot of burst that's front-loaded, and then top lane, it's a set and a cannon. They have a literal one-punch wonder, and then they have the person who has to blow you up with the ultimate or becomes basically negligible in a lot of fights.
Yeah, it's definitely a situation that can occur, but I think the defining characteristic for both of these compositions for me is they want to play aggressive. Is that if you can find a pick, I think Sengoku are a little bit more favored in that regard. But if you find that pick, you can burn so many cooldowns onto it and take them out of the fight immediately. Then all of a sudden, playing a 5v4 feels pretty good.
5v4s are the way that Mad Lions won the LEC yesterday. Yeah. Spoilers. And if you don't take these kind of fights when you do have the numbers advantage, it's how the last game slipped away. It looked like it was going to go in the favor. I'm trying to remember the matchup. Okay, it looked like Rascal Jester had it for plenty of the game. Yeah. But the thing is, they just didn't hard commit. They had the tools to do it, and they weren't just chain engaging. But if you do that, when you have numbers advantage, it goes so drastically in your favor so quickly that you can fight from a 10k gold deficit and make the game look competitive.
I think a certain analyst may be hoping
Sengoku's got me. Help.
Oh no, it's happened. It's happened. Sengoku have gotten to you already, but we will be getting to the game very shortly. We won't have to look at whatever the hell is going on with your camera there, Melvin Izzle. But it will be Axiz Academy facing off against Sengoku Gaming Academy. First match for both of these teams in the LJL Academy League. We'll be looking to get off to a flying start and pick up a victory today.
Then actually opting for this teleport on the Ezreal with the tier start shows that they are planning on being weak side from minute 1. They do not want to get involved in these skirmishes. It's a Kalista Rel. You will farm and you'll try and stack this tier, but outside of that, absolutely no engagements desired as the recall will be stopped. That's significant.
That's just rude from Mutton, man.
You know, he's a bit sheepish in his first game.
That pun was very lamb.
Okay, all right.
We're not doing this. Okay, yeah, we both have one.
I had lamb for dinner yesterday. It was quite good, actually.
Ooh, well, I think Sengoku will be hoping to be chumping down on Mutton. Volibear is going to press the attack, so does have a lot more damage in these early skirmishes, and then obviously when you come through onto a gank, we'll be empowering, getting that bonus damage, which means
Look
that
at you in the top lane. Both Sengoku side lanes are lurking to just try and get an advantage level 1. It looks like you will not be allowed to get this with the fleet footwork, but Sengoku's bot lane, they are very aggressively postured right now. They will actually manage to deny some XP.
Oh, that's really big. Is that 3 melees, I believe? We'll have to see if that is fruitful in the coming minutes. Obviously, level 2 is very, very strong point for Rel and Kalista, as Melissa going aggressive onto Akainu there. Was only level 1 on the Silas, so wasn't able to do much more.
Well, they get a corrupting stack. That is a significant thing when you are laning against somebody who goes corrupting potion. Each one of those you take down, that is going to take away a significant amount of their pressure for the rest of the lane phase. And especially against mages who want to back for Lost Chapter, you're almost forcing them to go back and get a tier if you can take a lot of these early trades that Silas loves to do.
Yeah, as we saw Akainu popping over to the Axiz red buff, spotting that Mutton was not there, so that information will be given over that the Volibear is on the top side of the map. Has gone for the full clear minus the Krugs, which we've been seeing from a lot of junglers recently, but not from this Xin Zhao, who has opted to go 3 camps in his top side and then over to his blue buff. Because his bot lane are pushing up a little bit, will be harder to gank that lane. I think Mutton is attempting a dive here in the top side. This would be very early.
Set is one of those champions that you really don't want to dive when they have the W available, because they could just eat up all that damage and Tom Kench style spit it back at you. So understandably running back down to go collect that Scuttle Crab instead. They do currently have the lead in the jungle, but tempo will go over to the Xin Zhao's favor, because now they can path upwards if they choose to do so. They're actually going to run mid, but we just saw that Nalicia put down a ward, so they are not going to get away with that. And now you is put in a more diveable position. On this kind of HP, you can feasibly get away with it, and they're not spotted on the ward.
Yeah, you did use the Haymaker a few seconds ago. It is slowly coming back off cooldown, and if it does, then the dive doesn't pan out. For Axiz, Mutton will just be taking a recall, but this is giving a lot more time over to the Xin Zhao, who's been able to farm a couple of camps in the Volibear's absence. Early plays towards topside not really panning out.
And I think this was a case where they didn't know where Mutton was after a point, because they could have potentially just finished their red buff pathing down to bot side. So they were in a bit of a scared position, saying, all right, we kind of need to keep Xin Zhao down here. They have no reason to run up top. So just farm as much as you can on our side of the map and hold off in case Mutton goes for something aggressive, because while the Kalista has the cleanse, if the Chilio gets jumped on by Dicey, then it's a dicey situation.
Yeah, it could get a little bit spicy for Chilio if that comes out, as we are seeing mirrored advantages for the solo laners of both teams. Akainu is building a little bit of a CS lead in the mid lane, whereas Toltu is building a pretty sizable CS lead in this top side on the Kennen. Going to be equalizing out to around about 10 to 15 ahead of you. And we have questions about Toltu to play champions other than that Jax Fiora Tryndamere core, but obviously has the Kennen in there as well, and is looking very good on the pick.
Good versatility in the pool as well. Obviously, it's the kind of thing you could still ban out the Kennen if you don't want to play against AP, but realistically, they're performing well on the champion, and it is quite difficult to pinch a single player of 4 champions. 3, you can feasibly do it, especially if some of them are strong in the meta, but outside of that, once you get more than it, they stop being somebody that you can really bully in draft in the same way that you can for other pseudo one-trick players, as right now, Toltu does manage to keep the priority in this lane. They are going to continue to bully down this set. The fleet footwork and the Doran shield combined with the set passive will keep them alive, though. That is the one thing that set can do in this kind of side lane, where they can just eat up pressure, go down in CS, but be fine overall.
Sengoku will be starting up this Ocean Drake. Does deal a fair amount of damage to junglers early on, but seeing as there is not really much pressure coming out from Axiz on the bot side of the map, we'll be able to pick that one up, as Mutton is once again making a visit to this top lane. Has popped down a ward. Nalicio is backing. Could TP for this. We could have a 3-man on our hands, as Mutton is making the move. The TP response coming through instantly from Akainu. That's the flash forward from you. They're going onto the Kennen. They're picking up the first blood. That's going to be the showstopper back. It is a second kill for Sengoku. Melvin Izzle, you got to be happy with that one.
That was so well done, forcing the ticket first. Normally you respond with the TP, but because they go in straight away and the Ken Volibear was so far out of position, it meant that you actually forced the Silas to TP over there. And not only that, because you get the kill onto them after the fact, now Syndra gets to wander back to mid with Lost Chapter and get to do whatever they want with the lane. Best part for them, I've not even finished there, there's a Zinzan range if they want to repeat gank. Let's take a look at how it happened, because this is you saying, I am about to die, send help, and they go for this aggressive flash face breaker. So well done, follows up into the Syndra stun, and then the follow-up set ultimate on the TP target. It's just chef's kiss, so well done.
Absolutely clean play coming out for Sengoku, as they might not be done. Mutton is in the area, finds the Jinjiao, getting aggressed on early as Yu is able to get the first move. The Sky Splitter comes down, gets the shield, gets the ultimate off of the slicing Maelstrom. Toltu, one more hit, does take down the Jinjiao, but Yu is looking to grab some mutton for dinner. Will trade the kill over. Now IQ is in the area. Kennen, no flash, no ultimate, no hope of getting out of this one, as Yu escapes with a slither of HP, and it's another kill going over to Sengoku, although it might not be done. Nolicio is in the area, but cannot abduct the Syndra and won't be able to pick up another kill.
Good read to not get caught out by that counter rotation from Nolicio on the mid lane. And once again, the play goes in Sengoku's favor. It was very narrow at the end there. Toltu got so close to almost managing to capture that last kill, which would have equalized it at least to an extent. But as you see in the mid lane, the XP is still in Syndra's favor, and it was because they had the priority. Asti is just lurking, manages to get the knockup, but I think because they get tagged by the Sky Splitter is the main thing that gets them killed here, because as you could see, the Kennen just barely gets that last Shuriken where they could have otherwise survived. And in the other side, Syndra jumped over the pit because they thought that they were going to be chasing this play. They still end up getting the 2-for-1 trade, but it was far closer than it needed to be and could have potentially been a 2-0 if there was a bit more coordination with the team.
Yeah, but as it stands, it is the Syndra who is 2-0 and 1. Got themselves those short shoes as well. So we'll be doing a bunch of damage. Going to be ticking over to level 9 soon enough. And we'll get that upgrade on their Dark Sphere, giving it the bonus damage. As Axiz are rotating their bot lane through towards this top side to pick up the Herald. This is a play that we see from a lot of teams. 9 minutes time. It's time to kill Shelly.
They've already sent Set down to bot lane, so they are going to be threatening tower plates. There's no TP available for Axiz, so while they will secure this Rift Herald, I don't think there's much for them to do with it at the current moment. And they kind of need to respond to this bot lane quick, because you secured 2 plates already. Set does double auto attacks. They're very good at this whole part here on the side. Let's take a look at what happened bot lane, because I didn't even realize this player had gone down, but it was Dicey just getting picked off. Dicey getting the pick off on the bottom lane because of the very slightly desynced recalls. That was a fraction of a second away from being completely fine, but goes in the favor of Axiz. They managed to pick up something along with that Rift Herald. Good recovery.
Yeah, but honestly, they kind of needed that because the topside plays haven't been working out for them at all. Ezreal does outrange the Kalista when you get into the later stages of the game, but that is countered by the fact that the Kalista is oh so slippy. So if Dent is landing these Mystic shots will be very high value, but if they aren't connecting, then Nina will be having a whale of a time. Sengoku, the gold lead isn't massive at this point, and Axiz do have that Rift Herald in their pocket, so if they're able to orchestrate a dive onto any of these lanes successfully, they can snowball it quite hard.
My biggest issue I have for Axiz using this Rift Herald is you're almost obligated to use it top lane, because that's the most consistent lane you're going to get priority in. Bot lane, if Dicey and Dent ever push up, you are at a disadvantage for combat summoners because of this teleport. So it does mean that they could theoretically take a hard engage, get the return kill, and then you're not really as reliably going to get something done with the Volibear. The dragon is spawning in 20 seconds though, which is why we do have both junglers converge down onto this bottom lane, and both supports currently lurking around the river trying to get something done beforehand, because if they can get a pick here, that dragon goes in their favor 10 out of 10 times.
Yeah, but because Mutton is only now making his way to the mid lane, Axiz weren't able to secure the push in mid, and that means that Sengoku can grab this second Drake of the game at 12 minutes. So it will be a fairly early soul. I'm praying for an Infernal. That stacked up with a Syndra does a bunch of damage, but of course, it is instead going to be the Mountain Rift.
You have the one window for a dive here. Volibear can turn off the turret. Yu is in a dire situation with support roaming up too. This should be a clean play.
Yeah, gets the showstopper immediately onto Mutton. One tower shot tanked up by Toll 2, and ultimately Axiz do not go for the play. Instead, the Ensconde landing onto Aikinu. The unleashed power is pretty big, as is the CC chain, and the Silas will drop down.
Massive win for Sengoku there. You managing to avoid the dive with that instant showstopper, and then following up on this play into the mid lane. It was almost like a counter-attack that Axiz was going for preemptively, but it backfires in a big way because now, priority on the mid lane, you can see that nothing has happened elsewhere on the map in their favor. They won't be going for plates, but they don't need to because as far as it goes, they're just waiting for objective fights when this team comp could really come online. And watch this, it gets very aggressive. I saw all the balls on the floor and thought that it was actually Syndra going aggressive for a moment, but that's just how confusing it gets with Silas in some of these matchups. So decisive from Chilio with their jungler right there. Does manage to pick that one up. No opportunity for another Kingslayer. And means that now they have priority on the bot side, but this is a summonless rel. So Axiz can actually find a window to try and make a play down here. But Mutton, other side of the map, Rift Herald about to expire. They have to use it somewhere very soon.
Yeah, it's very unlikely that you're actually going to be getting any plates with this, as their back is cancelled, running towards mid lane now, but Rift Herald's just going to be ticking off. Mutton is in 2 minds. Doesn't know where to put it. Will finally walk towards this mid lane, but Syndra, she's got enough CC that she could possibly take this one out. Yu moving towards the top side of the map with his jungler, trying to pressure out Toll 2. Rift Herald going to be used in the mid lane, but I don't think this is going to be getting anything other than plates.
And you have to give Sengoku credit for the fact that they managed to deny one of the most common set plays that you could do with Rift Herald, of chuck it down mid and then walk over to the dragon, and it forces the enemy team to make a tough decision.
Yeah.
Because Sengoku got the dragon so quickly and they were there with the priority, it meant the Rift Herald never had the opportunity to get thrown down mid. So once again, Sengoku getting the upper end of this play.
Yeah, and now with the turret plates falling off, there's not going to be many more scenarios where they can get that gold. And Axiz don't really have a team composition that can properly poke you off of towers. Dent is waiting to scale up on this Ezreal, does have that Mana Moon in pocket as well as building towards that Divine Sundra, but you're still going to be waiting a fair bit of time before that comes online. You really need to be landing these dives before you can actually get any of the gold from these structures.
If Dent can get a good 2k gold influx, they're going to spike very hard because they'll finish Sundra, finish Shoes, and have the Mirror Mana fully stacked up. So I'm not going to say that Sengoku are on a clock, but it definitely gets worse for them in the coming minutes. They have just completed that Immortal Shield Bow onto the Callista, but it will be Divine Sundra now for Mutton on the other side. So a lot of Mythics already online. Mid lane, the realistic one that is lacking that gold influx. I think it's because they haven't backed yet for a while. They do have TP advantage over Sengoku's mid lane. So we're just kind of waiting to see how they use it. And it looks like it's to invade the blue buff.
Oh, Yu and Haki very far forward, but the rest of Axiz are responding. That's going to be blue buff going over to the Jinjal, but he might be paying for it with his life. Flashes away. There comes the Stormbringer as Mutton picks up the kill. Dicey going forward onto Yu. And Sengoku, they may have got the blue buff, but it cost them a couple of lives. That is not #worth.
Dying around the Rift Herald really doesn't help as well, because it means that now Axiz can double down and take this, and Chilio is looking. They have 3 versus 5 if they want to go for this play, but it looks like they're actually just trying to grab somebody on the way out.
Oh, Luniso not going to be that person as he's able to dodge away from the Magnet Storm. Dent going very far forward. That's going to be the Unleashed Power, but it's not enough. Last kill of the fight going over to Dent, as this is what Axiz need to do. They're pressuring around the mid lane tower, but they can't commit further forward. Niner's just going to be able to wave clear this.
Wait a second. Okay, that's painful. I don't think it was stolen, so that is going to be a little bit of an Academy whoopsie happening right there.
That's Academy whoopsie indeed.
The initial play was good. This was really nice by Axiz managing to get the counter-attack, and you can see that the last hit doesn't go down, so they don't end up securing the blue buff straight away.
Yeah, but it does end up going over onto Mutton as he takes down the Jinjiao. It's a lovely Zenith Blade from Dicey. As you, Soldier Boy, tell him will be falling as well there on the backside, but ultimately not picking up that Herald means that you can't take that mid lane tower, which means that this Mountain Drake fight, which would be soul point for Sengoku, is a little bit more contestable for the red side team as they're making their way into the river.
And we do have the Rel ultimate on Sylas right now. This is a big impactful ultimate, but doesn't do much for Sylas, because if you're on top of somebody, you're already on top of them. This requires Toll 2 to synchronize with them if it is going to have a big impact here.
Well, that's to scatter the Reek in the wrong direction, as Axiz have actually been forced back. Those Dark Spheres deal a lot of damage. True Shot Barrage going over the wall, but it's not quite decisive. So Shopper going into the backline from you. Gets the massive damage with a Haymaker as Chili Oil is going onto the Sylas. Taken out immediately. That's a big ult from Toll 2. Gets the multi-man stuns as Mutton is low, but flashes forward before he is rendered. Nino with the double kill. Will be looking to pick up the Drake as well. Flashes away from the Zenith Blade and has to kite for his damn life. Can't do it. Dent picks up another.
Nina salvaged that play, getting the soul point for the team and picking up the kills on the backline. What this means now, if we look for Axiz, they are going to be able to push out this mid lane. Again, without the Herald, though, I don't think they'll be able to kill the tower before we have Syndra TPing back in. And look at how it started. We've got Axiz currently aggroed onto the dragon. Yu has TP'd in. So now with that extra move speed, they have managed to zone Axiz away. But watch this right here on the side. It is going to be the Sylas getting ready to go in with the Rel ult. And just as they collapse in, the dragon actually resets, which disengages Toll 2. That was why they couldn't synchronize perfectly. Otherwise, this play looked magnificent for Axiz. We see the flash to guarantee one kill, but Nina, so beautifully done here, actually flashing to avoid getting Zenith Blade. Secures the dragon. Yes, they die at the end of it, but a triple kill and a dragon on the Callista. I think that one's worth.
But we were talking about Dent getting a big influx of gold, did a bunch of damage in that fight, and also picked up a bunch of kills. Is sat 5-0-3 right now on the Ezreal, getting towards those item spikes that we knew would be so impactful.
So we do have this dragon taken by Sengoku, but the mid lane tower is still at this HP that if only there was a theoretical Rift Herald, it would have died. And it really goes to show how that little bit of finesse on the ender plays, just that potential nerves for both of these teams having their first game can hit them.
I mean, Callum, mate, it doesn't take much finesse to pick up a Rift Herald.
Hey, I'm trying to be nice to these people. It's their first game, all right, middle. I understand that, but I've dropped plenty of Rift Heralds, so I'm not one to really get away with it.
Yeah, no, and I think that is something that we do need to make sure that we are caveating. All the good plays that are being made are made all the more impressive because these aren't professional teams. These aren't teams that have been together for a long time. These are a lot of new rosters, a lot of new players to the Japanese scene. And this tournament is all about them showing what they can do. And you ignore the little mistakes like not picking up a Rift Herald when you can make big plays in team fights, like we've seen from Nina, like we've seen from Dent, and like we've seen from Mutton.
You have to think about the kind of players that get to rise up through these academy scenes. It's so important to have this kind of infrastructure, and it's great for the region because being able to highlight this talent, being able to give them a chance to play in these team environments, gives them that extra step up that a lot of the old guard of players never got the opportunity to have.
Yeah, and I mean, one of the things about the LJL as a region is it's got a lot of veterans in it that still occupy sort of the highest levels of competitions. DFM, say no more. The roster there has been together forever. There are a lot of journeymans, people like Cogcog, like Appman, who have been around the scene for a very long time. And it's important that these veterans are challenged with the potential of new blood coming in. If someone looked very good in Academy, not only is that great for them, but it lights a fire underneath some of the other players in the leagues, so they're still motivated to keep on performing at the highest level that they can.
Competition drives everyone, and you can see it around the world. The regions that have the best academy scenes, the best rookies, these kind of things, succeed.
Yeah.
It was in EU, once we started to integrate more of the academy system, starting to bring up these players, we saw things like Mad Lions rise up, Rogue, the current effectively top 2 out of 3 teams in the region. And then you look across the globe, you have LCK. The reason this region has always been one of the top dogs is because they have such good infrastructure for just finding new players and recruiting them immediately out of solo queue. China, enough said, it's like a talent factory across all these. This is the first step right here for LJL to get up there and start competing with the big boys, getting out of the wild card, especially with how successful, relatively speaking, we have seen DFM do at MSI. They had very competitive games. Having rookies coming up to compete with them, to drive them forward, will not only do well for the region, but like you said, it has knock-on effects at every step of the way.
Yeah, as we do see the Mountain Drake in this game spawning in 20 seconds, so the knock-on effect of Nina being able to pick up that one a few minutes ago is that Sengoku are now on Soul Point. We do see Dent leading over the Kalista in the gold, as Axiz have actually got a 3k gold advantage overall, so theoretically a little bit more power in these fights. But if Sengoku are able to land that big CC chain, they're going to be very happy to clean up.
Dent is so hard to kill here. If they are not bursted out by a Syndra combo, I don't think they can die with the Frozen Heart Divine Sundra in pocket. They are really tanky. That's the biggest benefit of the current Ezreal iteration, is they are just a drain tank that can shrug off any AD threats that jump on top of them. We'll have to see if they can maneuver this fight well. The Dragon is started. The TPs are coming in on the flanks.
Oh, Yu is trying to come in. There goes the Fate School, landing onto two with the Magnet Storm as well. But it sees tanky members. Dean is free to do the damage, as is told to on the backside with the Slicing Maelstrom. Nina trying to cut away from Mutton as much as he can, and he will just do it. Somehow still alive, but not for much longer, as Axiz clean up the rest of the fight.
Take a bow toll to that flank was disgusting. The damage followed up by your team, so beautifully played. And now the Baron is available. You have 4 members. The respawn timers are somewhat quick though. Once again, it is this Syndra with the TP that is going to be a thorn in their side. Otherwise, you could have seen them going towards this objective. Instead, they will get the priority on the side lanes, deny the soul, most importantly, and Axiz will continue to accentuate their lead. Starting off with how this went, it was just Axiz committing to the Dragon. You could see as soon as Dent is in the pit, both TPs coming in from separate flanks, and Yu gets there first, so they have the biggest impact initially. Big Rel ultimate, but nobody to combo with it. And then on the flank, here comes Tol2. 4-person Maelstrom going down. They get the chase down. Chili Oil is gone. Nina gets stunned up by the cannon, which enables Mutton to get on top of them. And it was only because of that that they were actually able to chase them down and finally drop them.
Yeah, it was a big engage right at the start from Sengoku, but it was just onto the Silas and onto the Leona. These aren't champions that you can burst, and these aren't the carries. They aren't Tol2, they aren't Dent, who do so much damage, as we can see there. Nearly 4,000. The Slicing Maelstrom was absolutely massive. This means that Axiz, like you said, have delayed that soul for another 5 minutes, built themselves a bit more of a gold advantage, and it means that they can pressure a little bit more around the Baron, which has been on the map for a couple of minutes.
And I like this itemization coming out here from Tol2. They know that their biggest job is to flank, get big ultimates. So the Banshees of Ale, instead of the Zhonyas, means that they can't be disengaged by the Set ultimate, can't be disengaged by the Syndra knockback, the Xin Zhao ultimate. And when you look at it, realistically, there's not that many good quick tools for them to break that spell shield, as there is a fight happening bot lane. Big shield from you.
Oh, yeah, but it was way too early. The defensive tools available to the Set are absolutely non-existent. Tries to break some faces, but the only one that's broken is him. And this gives Axiz a little bit more time on the map without the enemy top laner.
Is going to be both these mages heading out in the top lane looking at each other, but they are heading towards the Baron. It is warded, so Sengoku are the wiser, and they actually cancel the mid lane recalls. It was both jungle and ADC that were trying to back. They are sitting on gold. This is such a good spot for Axiz, even if they don't secure the objective and they just get a fight off of it. Sengoku are not in a good spot, and Mutton can sustain off this very handedly.
Yeah, Kainu not able to land the scatter the weak. They're relying on a steal coming out from the Xin Zhao. Do have a ward into the pit. A vision on this, down to 2k, down to 1k. It comes over the wall, but it does not get stolen. Sengoku not overcommitting, but Axiz do walk away with the purple worm buff.
Once they raised that damage on the Sky Splitter for Volibear, it became so easy for them to secure these objectives if they're on top of it. The burst they can pump out is basically a smite and a half, which most junglers short of a Nunu can't really hope to contest stealing over the wall. As we do now have Sengoku in a dire situation, Dragon not going to be up for another 2 minutes. So now looking at this, can they try and hold on? Their wave clear is, I'm not going to say lacking because it's non-existent. You do not have a Runans on the Callista. You do not have an AD source that can actually hit this minion wave safely. It is only the Syndra, and against Baron minions, they really don't do much.
Yeah, but ultimately Axiz deciding not to push too aggressively. There are still a lot of structures for them to take, so the gold is still there for the grabbing. Then has completed his third item, going towards this Frozen Heart. So trying to be a bit more of that drain tank that we were talking about earlier. Not going for the Shrildas where he knows he's going to be a little bit squishier. Understands that if he can keep landing the Mystic shots in these fights, he's going to be a lot more useful than if he's got a grey screen. Top lane tower going in favor of Axiz as they're looking to siege onto the mid lane one as well. But they recognize that Sengoku have got a lot of engage options and they do not want to overstep.
Nina is just sat there as Callista, not able to interact. They want to be able to get on this backline. They want to be able to dance around. We know that they have the mechanics to do it, but in this game, they do not have the setup. And frankly, the enemy team shuts them down way too hard to be allowed to do it. Even just Kennen on their own makes it almost impossible for this Callista to go for fights because you have to save the cleanse for so many factors. Flash volley bear stun.
Yeah.
Silas landing a chain. Leona exists on your screen. All of this just makes it so awkward to try and function, but they have somehow repelled the push with 30 seconds before Dragon.
I think that was smart though from Axiz. They don't want to overstep and potentially risk dying before this soul. On Sengoku, you've got a lot of champions that can use this very, very well. All that drain tanking coming out from Callista, from Jin Zhao, from Set means that bonus resistances are so much more effective. But Sengoku aren't in a position to contest. Akainu has the recall, does have the TP. They are moving into the area, but Axiz have got the advantage.
They might fish for a steal, but I don't think that they're ever going to be allowed close to this pick. They have the TP coming in now, but it's only a level 15 Syndra. That 16 mark is really important on this champion, and they do not have it currently, so they have to get very close if they want to try and burst someone out.
Yeah, 60 mark achieved onto Toltu, though. That slicing maelstrom is absolutely massive. Sengoku are grouping fairly far forward, and that Banshee's Veil completed means that you can't get the Kennen out of there. He's very far forward, could get caught out here as the crashdown comes out onto him immediately. So much damage being dropped, but he finally gets into the Slicing Maelstrom, and that means that Axiz can just take the fight. Aki guiding on the other side, but it's the Rel falling at the start. Another hit onto Nina. That's a double kill going over to Nalisa, and they're looking to take down the rest of Sengoku. Double Zonya's popped, but that's going to be 2 more falling down to the death chamber. It's a near ace for Axiz with the only one left alive, the Jin Zhao. And they're going to take this Drake, and they may not be done.
I think that they can go for the end here. They're at very least going to try and break in Hibs, but with 22 seconds on the ADC, it's going to be close if they actually try and go for it. They will be able to take this next tower without issue. 10 seconds on Chilio as well. I think they have to stop at the inhib, else this is going to get dangerous very quickly.
Oh, but I don't think they are stopping. Tanked up there by Dicey, and Elisa going forward. Here comes the rail. Gliss is going to be joining in a second. The first Nexus tower has fallen down. That's the engage, but it comes out from both sides at the same time. Rail's taken down immediately, but traded back for Dicey. Now Axis have to back away. The respawns are starting to come out. TP available for you, but there are no good flank wards for him to go onto. As I say that, though, could go onto this control, but he's walking directly into 4 members of Axis, and the backup isn't quite there in time. He's getting immediately jumped on. That's a huge shield into the showstopper onto Dead, but he can't quite kill him. Aki will be able to grab the shutdown. That's a beautiful scale of the week, but it's Zonya's away from the Kingslayer. Doesn't quite come out in time, and Sengoku punished the overstep.
Massive shutdowns now put into the pocket of Sengoku. They secure that Gromp on the sides. They have HP. They're going for it.
Oh, that's a really nice stopwatch from Nina as he's able to stay alive. There comes the slicing maelstrom, but he gets sliced down himself. There go the spears. There's a double kill for Nina, and Sengoku aren't dead yet.
In typical Sengoku fashion, it's all about giving the false hope and then taking it away. All the money onto this ADC, they are going to be rolling in at least one more fresh item off this base.
Yeah, and with that Mountain Soul as well, the resistances coming out are gonna be massive. And it was like you were talking about, Axis didn't need to go for that push. They overextended and they got hard punished.
And the fact that the minions were delayed by a new minion wave spawning, plus the Rel just jumping in, Chili Oil soaking up so much time, you can see that the set flank, there's no good target to ult immediately, so they get bursted out, but the fact they don't die means they can redirect this flash, put all the damage onto Dent, get this Ezreal out of here. They know their comp has no answer to it. 2 people committed to kill them, but it is worth in the end because these two, the Kalista and the Syndra, pump out insane damage in the late game. I think this is great here, doubling back to take the Gromp, heals them up. It means that once the dragon is aggroed, they bait out the Volibear ult, which is their main gap closer tool. You can't kill the Syndra on your own as Volibear, so it's just a matter of people falling one by one now. You could see the number of shutdowns that was showing up on that screen right there. That is the GA complete, along with a crit cloak now in Nina's inventory from that.
Absolutely massive, and it's difficult to track with the gold because we don't know how far Dent ahead was before that fight, but I'd wager it was pretty far given how well they have been performing this game. But Nina definitely no slouch either. Baron is on the table. Axiz theoretically still with a huge gold advantage, but if you can get a big flank here, it could be big for Sengoku.
They are looking for it. They do have everybody collapsed around, but that is one ward in the backline that is going to be a nuisance for them. If Sengoku do not find that one, it's just going to give Axiz all the confidence they need to say, all right, we know we're not being jumped on. We can see them just lurking in their own jungle. Look at this scattered vision on the minimap. The blue wards are doing so much work just by having that preliminary spotting, saying, all right, we know we're not being flanked from here. We know we're not being flanked from there. There's only 2 places we need to look, which makes it so much easier to allocate your resources.
Yeah, Akainu has to go down into the bottom lane to clear out this inhib stacked minion wave. There are double TPs available for Axiz, going to be triple soon, so if that wave is allowed to push in, they could just end the game. Will be responded to now. The Everfrost not connecting onto anyone, and Axiz just pull back from the Baron. They are toying with Sengoku.
The minions are in the base, but there is a Dragon Soul on Sengoku. They have these shields, they have the buffer to look for fights, but it doesn't win them the game here. They need to get something done aggressively soon, and it's not just because I'm really hungry, Middlecott.
I'm really hungry for action too, but Yu doesn't have a teleport, so whilst he's clearing out this minion wave, Sengoku can't take the fight. Maybe Aki gets a steal off onto the Baron, going down to 7k now. Set is roaming over, but he's a little bit too late. Dicey doesn't land the solar flare onto anyone, but the Iskander duct immediately goes onto Aiku. He's falling down as well. Chilio with a nice 2-person magnet storm, but it's not quite enough. The cleanse coming away from Nina. They can't cut it out fast enough, or maybe they can. Goes down into the GA, but surrounded by 5 members of Axiz. You are going to be dead. That's another kill going over to Dead. Triple TP going into the base. And Axiz, they overstepped earlier, but they are looking to end the game right now. The response coming out from Sengoku is not enough. Yu needs to make a hero play. They don't quite land the face breaker onto multiple people as Dent is just hitting the damn Nexus. And Axiz will take their first win of the LJL Academy League.
And like father, like son, the Sengoku Academy builds up my confidence, builds up my hope, and shatters it at the last second. So beautifully done by Axiz, but a well-fought battle. They managed to fight back in situations where they had no right to at times.
Yeah.
Sengoku had the Kalista, who was outscaled by a mile from that Ezreal, and yet still, they managed to go insanely massive. Nina has to get a pat on the back for that one, because their carry performance, if they had a bit more resources early, if they had something like the Runans, if they had more windows to fight, you could see this player being somebody we need to keep our eyes on.
Someone else we need to keep our eye on is Dent. Absolutely brilliant performance on the Ezreal. Possibly the only person on either rosters that I would actually put ahead of the Kalista. And we do actually have a replay of that final fight, Melvin, if we can break this one down.
Okay, so you can see right here, Sengoku have been forced to teleport in because of the minions in the base. Now they are on a timer. And this is Axiz saying, as long as we go for the fight, we're fine. The Xin Zhao ultimate used by both parties actually scatters this fight up a fair bit, and now means there is just Nina who has been pushed to the side. If you can't fight in a clump as the Kalista, you really don't get to play the game. And the fact they still don't have a Runans at this point because they've had to itemize so defensively, it's all over for them. The triple TP synchronously goes into the base. Game ends from there. There was nothing that Sengoku could do. They got hit hard. Mid laner died. Nothing else left for him.
But I tell you what, though, as a general point on the day, as well as this game, the level that these academy teams have been playing at, I've been quietly impressed with what's going on. There have been a couple of plays that I've not been completely enamored with, but the way that a lot of these teams move around the map, the understanding from Axiz there to bait out the TP initially, then force the fight around the Baron again, was really incredible.
Especially when you have triple TP, there is no world now, once you see Syndra teleport in, that Set can stop 3 people. I think if that play had gone more in Sengoku's favor, we likely would have seen all 3 of them back up and just immediately TP in the base anyway. Would have been close, but they did a great job with it. And I would personally say that V3 was the most impressive team on the day just because of their early vision dominance. Was there anybody or any team that stood out to you today?
I really like the way that Axiz played around that late game. I feel like that's something that I said about the main roster a lot of times over the split. And I think that's the same case here. Honestly, I've generally been impressed by the level. I want to give a shout out to Rascal Jester Academy. I feel like if they had played twice as well in one of their games as half as well in another, then they could be sat at like 1-1 or something if you like maybe swap the levels around a little bit. But generally, I think there is a lot of talent on these teams. And coming into this this split of LJL, obviously we didn't have many changes to the rosters. I think going into the 2022 season, if we can see the level of performance that we have been today consistently from some of these players, I think we could be seeing a new face. Or 2.
I think we will get a few, and it will be tomorrow kicking off with the Hawks and Sengoku playing. I can't wait to wake up, start with a smile, and finish with a frown at 9 a.m.
Yeah, should be a fun one. I hope to see you there, everyone that's watching. Thank you very much, Melvin Nizzle, for being my co-caster on these last 3 games. Yeah, it's been a fun one. We will see you later.